G'day folks, friends, family, my future self. After 3 months of cycling down Japan from the northernmost point of Hokkaido down to the southern reaches of Honshu, I thought it was time to do a bit of highland hopping and cross the Shimanami Kaido from Onomichi in Honshu to Imabari in Shikoku. In total, there were 6 islands and 6 bridges to cross, but the whole journey started with one ferry ride, a very short ferry ride from Onomichi City to Mukashima Island.
Bye bye Honshu, bye bye, sayonara. This is a very short ferry ride. They say one of the shortest in the world, but you know, small is beautiful. So there's the ferry. That short ferry ride cost me a whole 70 Japanese yen, so about 70 cents, Australian cents. Over there is Honshu, where I just left from. I'm now on the first island, but I don't know whether these islands that I have to cross belong to Honshu or whether they belong to Shikoku or whether they have a right of their own. So still don't know to this minute if I've left Honshu or not. But anyway, it doesn't matter. I'm on the first island of the island hopping journey across the inland sea. I've been given a map, but right now at the start I'll be following these blue arrows, which are quite nifty indicators of a bicycle route. And apparently this route is very well signposted all the way through the islands. I'm still on the first island, which is Mukashima. Over there is a red bridge, it goes to another island, but I'm not going onto that island. Here in front of me we have lots of boats, so obviously there's a fair bit of fishing and maybe tourism going on here. So far Mukashima has been nothing special, just the same as the rest of Honshu. But over there in the distance is the first bridge that I have to cross, and that's obviously the second island. Can't remember what it's called, I'll have to look on the map.
Speaking of maps, I found this really good diagram of the various bridges on the internet. I'll be showing this diagram as I go on, and I'll put a link to it at the last page of this wonderful, fascinating, inspirational video. So if anybody out there wants to do the same trip, this map's really good.
I've been looking for a nice spot to have my picnic lunch, which is a ham and salad roll of some sort and a sugary drink, but I've also got a banana and a mandarin. But I haven't found a nice spot yet. But anyway, I'm in the shade, I'm off the road, there's some pretty flowers, and I have a nice view of the inland sea. So there's the red bridge over there, which I didn't go over, but now I get a bit better of an idea of islands in the sea. There's the bridge I have to cross over, and of course on that headland there's a lovely pavilion where I could have sat and had my lunch. Ah well, you never know what's just around the corner. Here's a cycle path map of the whole thing. I am currently here, the start of this bridge. So this morning before lunch I crossed over here, rode all the way around, had lunch about here somewhere, and now I'm here. Today I'm crossing. There's a pirate castle there. Wouldn't mind going to see that if I find out where to get to it. Apart from that, the path goes like this and around, and somewhere here I'm staying for the next 2 nights because it's forecast to rain tomorrow. And down here we have all the height things. Each one of those bumps is going up to a bridge and down from a bridge. And this is a cross section of the bridge. You can see where it starts over the water and where it finishes at 770 metres, but the whole thing is 1.2 kilometres in length. There's the bridge. The cars all go across on the top level and the bikes go across on the level below, so I'll be cycling underneath all of these cars when I cross the bridge. As you can see from this, bicycles and slow motorbikes, we have our own lane and crossing section of the bridge. This green path I'm standing on is probably for walkers and, you know, families with little kids that are cycling, so they can go slow as they like, or people like me who just park there. But otherwise I'm in the left lane along with all the other cyclists and bikers. I've come here over hill and through the dales and along the coast and around the headlands and up another steep hill to find a pirate castle. And these are the banners for the pirate castle. Now, according to the map, it's not a pirate castle, it's a naval castle. But according to my brochure, it was a pirate castle. And there it is up there. But the brochure also said that they weren't pirates in the sense that we Westerners think of pirates with a black patch stealing all the stuff. These were people who were given control of the seas, and they basically controlled all the shipping and everything on the inland sea. Judging by the looks on their faces, they must have been a pretty fierce lot. And up there is the castle. Having cycled so far inland and climbed up all those steps, I can only wonder why a pirate castle was built on the top of a hill and so far away from the water. Anyway, the castle had lots of good stuff on display. Hand-painted maps, a whole collection of armour, and many, many helmets, each one scarier than the ones beforehand. And there was one in particular that reminded me of something way back. Anyway, there were more helmets and more helmets, till eventually I saw some boats, model boats. And given that I get thoroughly seasick at the slightest mention of a wave, I don't know what's more terrifying, the boats, the helmets, the armour. Lastly, I saw another building which was a reception room for the daimyo to receive his visitors, who were all bowing in front of him. And then of course I had to have a bit of fun. Okay, so I finished at the pirate castle and now I'm heading down to the beach and to the next bridge across to the next island. This is the main road, pretty hefty with traffic, except right now when I'm talking, of course, there's nothing. Oh, here we go, here's one car and another car and a motorbike. But Komoot has decided I should go down this trail. And I'm wondering if this was an old route, because it's narrow and steep and overgrown, but in the wall is this. Is this some sort of medieval marker of something? Yeah. And there are these. Firstly, there's this old wall. Well, it might be a wall, I'm not quite sure what it is. But there's this thing in front is a fairly new sort of engraved thing, but here, once again, something old. What have I stumbled across? There's the next bridge. Don't know how we get up there, but just follow the blue line and see what happens. It's interesting that there are no other cyclists out at the moment. It's only past 4 o'clock. Haven't seen another cyclist, except for school kids going home, since I left the castle. And I'm back on the main route. So I'm guessing that most of the cyclists have hired a bike for the day and they're settled already for the night. That's a much better picture. The sun's not in it. It was forecast to rain all day on my second day on the Shimanami Kaido, so I had booked a second night's accommodation, and the plan was to go to a local shopping centre and have a nice lunch and then go for a walk and see if I could find something interesting to look at. You can buy quite good meals here in that section, and then you go to the cashier and pay for your food. Then you walk to the eat-in section where there are tables and chairs and sometimes teenagers sitting there who should be in school. Oh, except today's Saturday. And there's rubbish bins. There's always a wash basin. There's a microwave. And you sit down and eat your food and while away an hour or two while it rains outside. Now, Japan can be expensive, but Japan can also be very, very cheap. So I bought this rice meal with a big piece of salmon, it's veggies and orange juice, and of course a nut and chocolate selection to help me while away the afternoon, and all of this was 1,100 yen, so the equivalent of 11 Australian dollars. And that'll keep me going all afternoon. Having had a nice lunch, I then looked at the tourist brochure to see what I could find to do, and I saw that there was a national monument, a 3-story pagoda to have a look at, and it was nearby. So I set off to have a look for it. I reckon I found the way up. Whoa. Yep, 120 metres to the 3-story pagoda. Down here, all these stones with red aprons. More burial things. Must be a lot of people here being remembered. Steps up to the pagoda. Nearly there. This 3-storied pagoda is a national treasure. trying to get a picture of the whole thing at once, but I don't think I can. Okay, amazing carves on the wooden beams and jointed eaves. Or jointed beams and wooden eaves, something. Don't know. Okay, I think there's a lot here that I'm missing. What does impress me that this building is more than 600 years old. So I'm 66, so you know, almost 10 of me. That's how old it is. So that's pretty impressive. For the rest, all the architectural wonderfulness of it, I have to leave that to historians and architects to understand it all, because I don't understand any of it. But I can still appreciate it even without understanding. And the other cool thing is not just these steep steps and how far down they go, but the view over the town, onto the water and over the hills as well. That's pretty cool. Now that I'm a bit closer to the water, I can actually see how the water is flowing or eddying around. That's why these pirates were so useful and popular. They were the only people who knew how the currents flowed and could guide boats safely through the area. If you didn't have one of them on board, there's a very high chance that you would sink. This mountain must be somehow very spectacular or religious or spiritual or something. There are so many grave sites here. And yeah. And they're not all old ones either. I mean, the grave pillars down there, they look relatively new. And they're still well cared for. There are lovely flowers placed there and branches, and it all looks very clean and well cared for. And along the roadside are just these very old indicators that things were happening here a long time ago. I mean, the plastic bottles are pretty new, but the rest is not. It's good to see the locals have a modern use for old bathtubs too, just like we do at home. Our old bathtubs become water troughs for cattle and for horses. Here, I think it's a water reservoir for the garden. No bathtub shall ever die. Now that the rain has stopped, it's all quite beautiful. The clouds are covering the tops of the mountains. The birds are chirping, they're quite happy. Over there we see another island, also with mountains and clouds. There's my path back.
At this point, I spotted something that made me really question my sanity. I'm going to go on to the next clip, and if you see something odd, let me know in the comments below.
So here's that map again. 2 days ago, I was here and I cycled around there and over the second island. I cut through the middle to go to the castle, and then cycled around there and stayed 2 nights here because it was raining yesterday, and this morning I cycled this and I'm now here. And today I have to do 1 bridge, 2, 3, and then the absolute doozy 4. I think this one's 7 kilometres long, and it's a very windy day, so it's going to be interesting.
Did you spot the issue? And I can tell you it was not this sign of a wild galloping boar. And it wasn't this massive lemon either. So if you haven't worked out yet what the issue was, keep going, keep watching, and I'll explain it right at the end. But for now, let's get back to this next bridge, which I think is around about the 3rd last bridge of all of them.
There we see the swirling currents. There's no way I want to be swimming across that. No dropping stuff on ships really. Now, isn't this a sight for sore eyes? A beach with beautiful sand. It's a pity it's such a freezing cold wind blowing today. Otherwise I'd go for a swim.
So we've reached the end of the journey. 6 islands, 6 bridges, 1 ferry ride. It was great. Loved it. Loved every minute of it. And but I did have one, something that made me scratch my head and just couldn't get my head around it. So, and I promised that I would explain it at some stage. So that's what I'm about to do now. It's all about the maps. This map and all of the other maps that I saw had Mukashima Island and Onomichi on the left-hand side, and I was travelling across the map from left to right. You might remember going right back to that first map that I showed, and I was on the left-hand side of the map. It's all good. Then I got to this map, and they put Mukashima on the right-hand side of the map, and suddenly I was travelling from right to left. How was I supposed to deal with that? So I looked at the map and scratched my head and turned my eyes round back to front and inside out, and same with the brain. And from then on I was riding from right to left, as you do. So that's the end of another thrilling video. This is number 14 in my series about Japan. If you like what I've been doing, you can always like and subscribe. And if you don't like it, well, you don't need to, whatever. I did promise at the start that I would put some more information at the right at the end. So next to my lovely face here is the web address of some really good information about the Shimanami Kaido. So it has those maps, which very happily all go from left to right or from top to bottom. And it has also lots of other information about the trip, including where you can hire bikes if you don't want to bring your own. So it's all there. And have a nice day.